The sound of laughter carried across the restaurant, clinking glasses, and the soft hum of a piano in the corner. But all of that noise faded when his eyes caught hers. She sat 2 tables away, clutching a small worn purse so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. A folded $5 bill peeked out from the edge of her wallet, the last piece of hope she had brought with her to this blind date. She smoothed the front of her thrift store blouse, eyes darting toward the door every few seconds as if praying he would walk in. Her blind date. The man who was supposed to change everything. But what she didn't know was that at the next table, a man in a crisp black suit and a gold watch had been watching her every move. He wasn't just another customer, he was a CEO, a single father whose sharp eyes missed nothing. He leaned back in his chair, pressing a hand over his daughter's tiny fingers as she colored on the kids' menu beside him. He watched the poor girl as her date finally arrived, and the night turned into something no one at that restaurant would ever forget. Before I continue, pause for a moment. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. And if you're ready to see how this shocking story unfolds, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel right now so you don't miss the next chapters. Haley Foster was 23, a nursing student barely keeping her head above water. Between night shifts at the grocery store, unpaid clinical rotations, and helping her younger brother with his schoolwork, life had been a constant storm. Still, she dared to hope that maybe tonight would be different. Maybe tonight, she would finally meet someone who saw her as more than just a struggling girl with bills stacked on the counter. Her best friend had set up the date, swearing the guy was sweet, funny, and ready to settle down. Haley wasn't asking for forever. Just kindness. Just a chance. She had spent hours in front of the cracked bathroom mirror in her apartment, dabbing foundation over the shadows under her eyes, curling her chestnut brown hair into soft waves, and slipping into the only skirt she owned that didn't have a frayed hem. When she counted the money left in her purse, $5, she almost canceled. But then she thought of the loneliness that followed her every night shift. She thought of the empty side of her bed. She thought of the possibility, however small, that maybe this man could change everything. The restaurant wasn't fancy, but it wasn't cheap either. Haley had picked it carefully, choosing a place just nice enough to feel special but not so expensive that her date would feel pressured. Her plan was simple. Order water, pray he wouldn't notice she couldn't afford much, and let the night flow. The CEO at the next table, Lucas Grant, didn't mean to notice her. He had enough on his mind already: shareholder meetings, an upcoming merger, and the endless guilt of trying to balance work with raising his 6-year-old daughter, Mia. But Haley stood out. It wasn't her clothes or her makeup. It was the way she kept glancing around the room, shoulders stiff, hope flickering in her eyes every time the door swung open. Lucas knew that look. It was the same look his late wife used to have before every one of his business trips, silently asking, "Are you going to let me down again?" When the man finally arrived, Haley straightened in her chair, her smile wide and eager. But Lucas's gut tightened the second he saw him. The guy walked in with his shirt half tucked, texting on his phone, not even glancing at Haley before sliding into the seat across from her. He didn't apologize for being late. He didn't compliment her. He didn't even look at the menu. Instead, he leaned back, smirked, and said, "So, what do you do? And please don't tell me you're one of those broke students still figuring life out." Haley's face fell, though she tried to keep smiling. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, forcing herself to laugh lightly. "Actually, I'm in nursing school." The man rolled his eyes. "So broke student it is." He waved for the waiter. Lucas clenched his jaw, his hand tightening around Mia's small fingers. He wanted to look away, but he couldn't. Something about this poor girl's quiet dignity, the way she swallowed her embarrassment instead of snapping back, made him stay rooted in his chair. He whispered to Mia, "Finish your drawing, sweetheart," but his eyes never left Haley. As the night unfolded, Haley tried her best to steer the conversation, but her date, his name was Brandon, kept cutting her off, bragging about his job in crypto, making crude jokes, and glancing at every waitress that passed by. When the waiter placed the menus down, Haley's heart sank. Even the cheapest appetizer was twice what she had in her purse. She looked at the $5 again, hidden inside her bag, and silently prayed Brandon would at least cover his own meal. Lucas saw her fingers trembling as she closed the menu. He saw the way she kept sipping water, pretending to be full. He saw everything. And when Brandon excused himself to take a call outside, Lucas leaned forward, signaling the waiter with a quiet nod. "Her check," he murmured, sliding his card across the table. The waiter hesitated. "Sir, don't tell her. Just do it." When Brandon came back inside, his mood was even worse. He glanced at Haley's untouched plate. She had only ordered a small bowl of soup and scoffed. Seriously? That's all you're having? I thought I was meeting someone classy. Haley's chest tightened. She wanted to leave. She wanted to run. But before she could gather her things, the waiter returned with the check and a polite smile. It's already been taken care of. Brandon blinked. What? Haley frowned. Taken care of? By who? The waiter only glanced subtly toward Lucas's table before disappearing again. Haley followed the look, her breath catching when she saw him. A man in a sharp suit, broad shoulders, dark hair, and piercing eyes. Beside him, a little girl smiled shyly, waving her crayon. Lucas didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just gave her a look that said everything she needed to know. You're not invisible. Someone sees you. But before Haley could even process the kindness, Brandon slammed his fist against the table. What is this? You had another guy waiting to pay for you? Unbelievable. You girls are all the same. His voice rose, drawing the attention of nearby diners. Haley's cheeks burned with humiliation. She shook her head quickly. No, I didn't. I swear I don't even know him. Brandon sneered, tossing his napkin aside. Yeah, right. Enjoy your little charity case. He stormed out, leaving Haley frozen in her chair, tears welling in her eyes. Lucas felt his muscles tense. He wanted to get up, walk over, and say something. But a voice in his head whispered caution. He wasn't just a stranger. He was a father, and everything he did mattered. Still, when Haley lowered her head, wiping her eyes with trembling fingers, Lucas knew this was only the beginning of something much bigger than either of them could have expected. And that night, in that small restaurant, the lives of a struggling girl and a powerful CO began to intertwine in ways neither could have predicted. Haley walked into the night with trembling hands gripping her purse as if it were the only anchor left in her life. The glow of the restaurant's neon sign reflected faintly on the sidewalk, but her eyes blurred it into streaks of red and yellow. Her chest heaved in shallow breaths, and though the night air was cool, sweat gathered at the nape of her neck. She could still hear Brandon's voice in her ears, sharp and cruel. You girls are all the same. She could still feel the heat of eyes burning into her back when he stormed out, leaving her behind like she was worth nothing at all. She reached her car and sank into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel with both hands. Her purse slipped onto the passenger side, spilling its contents: lip balm, a folded clinical note, and that lonely $5 bill. The bill fluttered to the floor, and Haley stared at it as though it mocked her. She bent to pick it up, her fingers trembling. For a long moment she just held it, tears sliding down her cheeks unchecked. This was all I had, she whispered. The truth of those words felt heavier than the roof of the car pressing down on her. She tilted her head back, closing her eyes. Images from childhood rose uninvited. Her mother scraping coins together to buy bread, her father leaving when she was 10, her younger brother Ethan standing in doorways with wide eyes asking, Haley, what's for dinner? She had learned early how to stretch $1 until it screamed, how to smile when classmates teased her secondhand clothes, how to keep moving forward no matter what. But tonight hurt in a new way. She hadn't just been broke. She had been seen as worthless. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. A text glowed on the screen, rent due in 3 days. No more extensions. It was her landlord. Haley pressed her palm to her forehead, shutting her eyes. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. But then, deep inside, the voice that had carried her all these years whispered back. Yes, you can. You don't have a choice. Meanwhile, Lucas drove home with Mia sleeping in the back seat. The child's head tilted against the window, her crayon still in her hand, pages of unfinished doodles crumpled on her lap. Lucas adjusted the mirror to watch her breathing, slow and steady, innocence untouched by the ugliness she had witnessed earlier. He should have left it at that. A small act of kindness, paying for a stranger's meal. Nothing more. That was how he lived now, compartmentalized, controlled, disciplined. Ever since his wife Emily died 4 years ago, he had sworn never to let emotions derail him again. The grief had been unbearable, but even worse was the guilt of failing to be both husband and father. He remembered Emily's laughter echoing through their kitchen, Mia barely 2 years old at the time, reaching sticky hands for cookies. Then the hospital visits, the pale skin, the whispered prayers that never came true. When she passed, Lucas had drowned in boardrooms and contracts, using numbers as a shield against the loneliness that crept into every corner of his mansion at night. But tonight, that shield cracked. Watching Haley sit with trembling hands and broken dignity had stirred something raw in him. Her silence screamed louder than Brandon's insults. It reminded him of Emily's quiet strength, of the nights she bore her illness with grace even when fear hollowed her eyes. Lucas tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He wasn't supposed to care. But Mia's voice echoed in his mind, "Why is that lady crying? Can we help her?" Back home, he carried Mia upstairs, tucking her under soft blankets. She stirred, whispering, "Night, Daddy," before drifting back to sleep. Lucas lingered by her bedside, brushing a curl from her forehead. He whispered, "I'll always protect you." But the unspoken thought followed. What about her? That girl with the $5 bill? He turned away sharply, convincing himself it was none of his concern. Yet when Mia knelt beside her bed that night, her small voice floated into the hallway, "Dear God, please help the lady from the restaurant. She was really sad. And please let Daddy be happy too." Lucas closed his eyes against the sudden sting point. 2 days passed. Haley woke before dawn, slipping into faded blue scrubs that had been washed thin. She packed her brother's lunch with the last of the bread and peanut butter, smiling faintly as Ethan, now 17, shuffled sleepily into the kitchen. His messy hair stuck in every direction, and his shoulders sagged beneath the weight of textbooks. "You don't have to do that," he murmured, watching her. "Yes, I do," she replied, sliding the sandwich into a bag. "You need to focus on school. I'll handle the rest." He frowned. "You're working yourself into the ground." Haley reached out and squeezed his hand. "One day this will all pay off. You'll see." But as she walked to the bus stop under the gray morning sky, Haley wasn't sure she believed her own words. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since the soup at the restaurant. The landlord's notice still lay on the counter, a threat she couldn't outrun. The hospital. She checked charts, adjusted 4 lines, and smiled at patients even when her legs trembled from exhaustion. She lived in 2 worlds, the professional mask she wore at the hospital, and the fragile reality she hid at home. But today her 2 worlds were about to collide. "Daddy, look." The little voice stopped her cold. She turned and her eyes widened. Mia. The little girl from the restaurant stood just a few feet away, clutching her father's hand. Her bright hazel eyes lit up when she recognized Haley, and she broke free, skipping toward her. "Hi. It's you." Haley blinked in surprise, then smiled despite herself. "Hi there." Mia beamed. "You remember me, right? You were sad at the restaurant." Haley's cheeks warmed. Children never hid the truth. She nodded softly. "Yes, I remember." Lucas caught up, his hand steady on Mia's shoulder. His eyes met Haley's, and for a moment, the sterile hospital hallway faded away. "You're here?" Haley said quietly. "Mia had a checkup," Lucas explained. He hesitated before adding, "You're in nursing school?" Haley nodded. "Trying to be." Lucas studied her. The exhaustion in her eyes. The way she straightened her shoulders even when she looked ready to collapse. The quiet resilience that made her stand taller than she felt. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but his assistant's call buzzed on his phone, and the doctor ushered Mia forward. "Maybe I'll see you around," Lucas said before turning. Haley watched them disappear into the pediatric ward. Her chest ached with something she couldn't name, gratitude, longing, and confusion all tangled into one. She whispered to herself, "Why does life keep putting you in my path?" That night, rain battered the thin windows of her apartment. Haley sat at the kitchen table, the eviction notice spread before her head buried in her hands. Ethan slept in the next room, oblivious to the storm inside her chest. She whispered into the silence, "God, I don't know what else to do." Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, fear and hope clashing in her veins. Her thumb hovered before she answered. "Hello." Pause. Then a familiar voice. Oh, steady, unshakable. "Haley?" Her breath caught. "Lucas." Silence stretched. She could hear the rain against her window, her own heartbeat loud in her ears. "I don't usually do this," Lucas said finally. His words were careful, deliberate, as if each one carried weight. "But I think we need to talk." Haley froze, staring at the eviction notice, at the cracked walls of her tiny apartment. A stranger who had already seen her at her lowest was reaching into her life again. She didn't know whether to hang up or to hold on for dear life, and deep down she knew this call could change everything. Haley sat at the small kitchen table, staring at the phone long after the call ended. Lucas's words still echoed in her mind, "I think we need to talk." She had whispered a shaky "okay" before hanging up, but now she wondered if she had made a mistake. What could a man like him, wealthy, powerful, self-assured, want with a girl like her, a broke nursing student on the verge of eviction? Her brother Ethan shuffled out of his room, rubbing his eyes. "You're still awake?" he asked. "Couldn't sleep," Haley admitted, sliding the eviction notice into a drawer before he noticed. Go back to bed, Ethan. You've got school. But Ethan lingered, watching her. You know, Haley, you don't always have to carry everything alone. She forced a smile. I'm fine. But inside she wasn't fine at all. The next evening, Haley found herself standing outside a small, cozy cafe. The rain had stopped, but the streets glistened with puddles reflecting the warm glow of street lamps. She hesitated before opening the door. Lucas was already there, seated at a corner table. No suit tonight, just a navy sweater and dark jeans. Yet he still looked out of place, as if the world bent subtly around his presence. His eyes lifted the moment she stepped in, and for a brief second, he almost smiled. Haley. She nodded, clutching her purse strap tightly. Lucas. They sat across from each other, silence stretching between them. A waitress came and went, leaving 2 steaming mugs of coffee neither touched. Finally, Lucas leaned forward. I don't want you to think I pity you. That's not why I reached out. Haley's cheeks burned. Then why did you? He hesitated. Because I see something in you. Strength. Grace. Even when that guy humiliated you, you didn't break. Most people would have lashed out or stormed out, but you held your dignity. I respect that. Her eyes watered, though she quickly blinked the tears away. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. Then tell me, Lucas said softly. So she did. She told him about losing her parents in a car accident when she was 17, about raising Ethan while working night shifts, about nursing school and the constant threat of losing the little they had left. She didn't embellish. She didn't beg. She just laid the truth bare. When she finished, Lucas was silent. Finally he said, You've carried more than most people twice your age. And you're still standing. Haley exhaled shakily, unsure what to say. Then Lucas shared his story. About Emily. About the nights he sat alone in a house too big, trying to explain death to a child who still believed in bedtime stories. About the guilt of missing moments with Mia because of work. Haley listened, her heart aching at the rawness in his voice. She had expected a man with walls of steel. Instead, she found cracks filled with pain. For the first time in years, Lucas felt lighter just speaking the truth aloud. Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed more often. Lucas stopped by the hospital during Haley's shifts, always with Mia in tow. The little girl adored Haley, bringing her crayon drawings, stick figures with big smiles, always 3 of them holding hands. Haley pinned them in her locker, secretly treasuring every one. One afternoon, Mia tugged on Haley's sleeve and asked innocently, Will you come to my school play? Daddy always looks so serious when he watches. But if you come, maybe he'll smile more. Haley's heart melted. She glanced at Lucas, who stood nearby, expression unreadable. He gave a small nod. And so Haley found herself in a crowded auditorium, clapping as Mia sang off-key and waved enthusiastically at both of them from the stage. For the first time in years, Haley laughed freely. And for the first time since Emily's death, Lucas smiled without forcing it. But life wasn't done testing them. Brandon reappeared one evening as Haley left the hospital. He leaned against her car, smirking. Well, look who's climbing up the ladder. Heard you've got yourself a sugar daddy now. Haley froze. Leave me alone. Brandon stepped closer. Rich guy like him doesn't see girls like you unless he's bored. Don't fool yourself. You're just charity. Before Haley could respond, headlights flooded the parking lot. Lucas's car pulled up and he stepped out, his expression thunderous. Is there a problem here? His voice was low, dangerous. Brandon sneered but backed away. Just warning her. Guys like you don't keep girls like her. Lucas's jaw tightened. He moved to stand beside Haley, his presence solid, protective. You're wrong, he said coldly. And if I ever see you near her again, you'll regret it. Brandon scoffed but left. Haley trembled, her breath uneven. Lucas turned to her, his voice softer now. Don't listen to him. He doesn't know you. But the words had already cut deep. That night, staring at her eviction notice, Haley whispered, What if he's right? The pressure mounted. Word spread in Lucas's corporate circle. Board members questioned his judgment, warning that fraternizing with a broke student could damage his image. One even suggested quietly that Haley was after his money. Lucas shut down the conversation with a glare, but doubt gnawed at him. Not about Haley, but about whether he was strong enough to defy the world's expectations again. Haley too wrestled with fear. She had seen kindness before, fleeting and conditional. What if Lucas woke up one morning and decided she was too much trouble? What if she lost not just him but Mia too? The thought broke her. So she tried to pull away. When Lucas called, she made excuses. When Mia begged her to visit, Haley gently declined. Finally, one evening she told Lucas, "This isn't going to work. We live in different worlds. You have everything. I have nothing." Lucas stood silent for a long time. Then he stepped closer, his voice steady. "You're wrong. You have more than you realize. You have courage. You have heart. You have the kind of strength money can't buy." Haley shook her head, tears spilling. "But that's not enough." Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out one of Mia's drawings, the 3 stick figures holding hands. "It's enough for her. And it's enough for me." Her breath caught. He continued, his voice breaking for the first time. "Emily taught me love wasn't about wealth or status. It was about showing up every single day no matter how hard it got. I lost that once. I won't lose it again. Not if you'll let me in." Haley stared at him, torn between fear and hope. Slowly she whispered, "Lucas." At that moment, Mia came running into the room, clutching a new drawing. She held it up proudly. "Look, it's us again." Haley glanced down. This time there weren't 3 figures. There were 4. Daddy, Mia, Haley, and a heart drawn between them all. Haley's tears flowed freely. Lucas placed a hand gently over hers, steady and sure. And for the first time, she believed maybe she wasn't meant to carry everything alone. Weeks later, Lucas brought Haley and Ethan to a dinner at his estate. The boardroom battles still loomed, whispers of disapproval still circled, but none of it mattered when he saw Haley laughing with Mia in the garden, her laughter ringing like a melody he hadn't heard in years. Brandon was wrong. The board was wrong. Haley wasn't charity. She was the miracle he hadn't known he needed. The garden lights glowed softly around Lucas's estate as laughter floated through the air. Mia darted across the grass, chasing fireflies while Haley sat nearby, finally allowing herself to exhale. For weeks, her heart had known only survival, counting coins, sleepless nights, humiliation. But tonight there was peace. Lucas's presence steadied her, his voice deep and calm as they spoke quietly at the patio table. Ethan was inside, lost in conversation with Lucas's driver about colleges and scholarships, his eyes bright in a way Haley hadn't seen in years. For a fleeting moment, everything felt possible. But peace never stayed long. The next morning, Lucas sat in a boardroom filled with polished mahogany and sharper tongues. His executives eyed him warily, the air thick with judgment. "You cannot be serious," one of them said, slapping a file shut. "This girl. She works shifts at a hospital, lives paycheck to paycheck. Do you understand how this looks? You're the face of this company, Lucas. Every headline matters." Lucas's jaw clenched. "I don't measure people by their bank accounts." "Then you're making a mistake," another snapped. "Investors don't care about fairy tales. They care about stability. If you're seen playing house with some broke student, it sends a message that I'm human." Lucas cut in, his voice sharp. "That I care more about character than image? Maybe that's the message this company needs." The room fell silent. Lucas stood, gathering his notes. "If my personal life threatens your confidence in me, then maybe you're not the partners I need." He left before they could respond, his chest tight but his decision clear. Meanwhile, Haley faced her own storm. Brandon had resurfaced, posting cruel comments online, calling her a gold digger, mocking her $5 bill story, hinting she had schemed her way into Lucas's life. The posts spread fast, whispers trailing her even at the hospital. One nurse muttered, "Guess hard work isn't enough, you just need a rich man to notice you." Haley swallowed the sting, focusing on adjusting a patient's for. But that night, back in her apartment, she broke. Staring at the eviction notice still taped to the counter, she whispered, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong in his world." She considered ending it, cutting ties before she dragged Lucas and Mia down with her. Her phone buzzed with a new message from Lucas. "Dinner tomorrow? Bring Ethan. Both of you." Haley typed out a shaky reply, "I don't think this is a good idea." His response came instantly, "It's not a request." She stared at the screen, her heart torn. The dinner was at a grand hotel ballroom, filled with investors, executives, and journalists. Haley felt painfully out of place in her borrowed dress, Ethan fidgeting nervously beside her. Lucas met them at the entrance, his hand steady as he guided them in. "You belong here," he murmured firmly, his eyes locking with hers. But halfway through the evening, Brandon appeared. Dressed sharply, smirk plastered on his face, he stepped onto the stage where a microphone awaited the keynote speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began mockingly, "I just wanted to congratulate our beloved CEO for setting such a charitable example. Not every billionaire takes in strays." His eyes landed on Haley. After all, who wouldn't fall for a girl whose entire life fit into $5? Gasps rippled through the room. Haley froze, shame crawling up her neck. Ethan's fists clenched at his side. Lucas rose slowly, his presence commanding silence. He strode to the stage, taking the microphone from Brandon's hand with effortless authority. "Let me correct you," Lucas said, his voice carrying through the hall. "This woman is not a charity case. She's stronger than any man I've met in this room. While most of us were handed opportunities, she built her life out of scraps. She takes care of her brother, works through exhaustion, and still finds the courage to face every day with grace. If that's weakness, then maybe we should all hope to be as weak as her." The room was silent. Lucas continued, his eyes never leaving Haley's. "I don't need a boardroom's approval to know her worth. And I don't need the world's permission to care for her. She doesn't need me to validate her. But I'll tell you this." He paused, his voice steady. "I'm the one who doesn't deserve her." Mia, seated at the front table, stood on her chair and clapped loudly. "Go, Daddy," she cheered, her innocence breaking the tension. Laughter spread, followed by applause. Even some executives reluctantly joined in. Brandon slunk off, defeated. Haley's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, someone had stood for her, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Later that night, Lucas found her on the balcony, her hands gripping the railing. She turned as he approached, her voice shaking. "Why did you do that? You could have ruined everything." "I don't care about everything," he said simply. "I care about you." Her tears spilled over. "I don't have money, I don't have connections. All I can offer is yourself," Lucas interrupted gently. "And that's all I want." Haley's breath caught. He stepped closer, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Let me carry some of this with you. You don't have to do it all alone anymore." Behind them, Mia peeked out, her small voice carrying. "Haley, can you tuck me in tonight?" Haley turned, stunned. Mia's eyes were wide, hopeful. Lucas smiled softly. "Looks like someone already made her choice," he said. Haley's heart swelled. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in a future not built on fear, but on love. Weeks later, life looked different. Ethan received a scholarship Lucas had quietly arranged, freeing Haley from constant worry about his education. Mia clung to Haley at every chance, drawing more pictures of their family. Lucas's board slowly quieted, realizing their CEO's resolve was unshakable. One evening, at a small family dinner, Mia whispered across the table, "Daddy, can Haley stay with us forever?" Lucas looked at Haley, his eyes soft but steady. Haley reached for Mia's hand, tears shimmering in her eyes. Forever sounds pretty perfect. And for the first time, Haley, Lucas, and Mia, three broken souls, felt whole again. This story reminds us, love isn't about status or wealth. It's about choosing each other, standing together through storms, and finding family in the most unexpected places. Backhand index pointing right. If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to this channel so you never miss another powerful story.